Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Happy Monday. We don't have a whole lot to talk about today. Kind of a nonchalant kind of day. Mainly just a predictable sort of consolidation day going into our JPOW testimonies that we have tomorrow. He testifies in front of Congress the next 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday. I imagine that will be huge for the market. He's going to be talking a lot about monetary policy, a lot about where he thinks the Fed is headed these next few meetings. So that's going to be huge. Today, we opened up nicely. We gap up. We ended up green on the Nasdaq, barely green on the S&P. Mostly a sideways day in terms of where we ended up closing. But we are following these 2 days that we had for Thursday and Friday from last week, where we just shot out of a cannon. Nasdaq went from 288.50 straight up to 303. Monstrous move. S&P made a really nice move as well to the upside. So kind of just that predictable hangover after we have these monster moves to the upside. Nothing alarming, nothing making me bearish. If anything, things are looking a little bit bullish. And you can see, looking here at the Nasdaq, looking here at this triple Qs here, you can see right where we bounce off this trend line. I mean, this trend line up here, we bounced clean off of it. I mean, bam, we ran right up to it. Huge wick to the upside off of that trend line. That would have been a huge short, 303. We ended up closing right at 300. So pretty predictable, pretty solid selling volume. Very ugly daily candle, a huge shooting star. I mean, disgusting daily candle with not crazy volume, but kind of just predictable profits being taken. So nothing about today makes me go crazy to the downside. Nothing about today makes me go crazy to the upside. I know the market's just going to be waiting, so I implore, or I highly recommend you exercise caution these next couple days, because we're talking about JPOW here. This is huge. The guy can move the entire market with one word, and the algos will be listening to every single word he says and reacting way quicker than you can react. So be very careful if JPOW comes out and surprises us a little bit, because I think he's going to come out and say a lot of what they've already been saying, which has been bullish for the market. I don't think the Fed thinks they've seen enough to start to change their tone and start to wag their finger at the stock market or at the bond market yet. I think they're waiting to see this upcoming inflation data that we'll be getting next week to start to really maybe start hitting the brakes and being like, all right, things are getting a little too hot again. So that's just what I'm thinking. Don't take what I think for worth anything. Take it with a grain of salt. But I don't think JPOW is going to come out and do a Jackson Hole where the market just dumped back in August, if anyone remembers that. Even though right now the daily chart is looking eerily, kind of like what's happened in the past, where we kind of top out here in August. We get this little 2% to 2.5% move to the upside, and then we just get completely rug pulled, or what happened back here in early September. Look at this, 2%, 0.5%, 2%, Nasdaq's going crazy, 1%, super low volume, and then we get rugged and we get yanked straight down. Kind of looks like what is sort of happening right now, but I need to wait and see. So I'll tell you what kind of levels I'm looking at in the Nasdaq. Really, looking at the Nasdaq right now, we filled the gap to the upside. So we have a huge volume kind of shelf over here. We got big supply up here. We know sellers are going to be waiting up here. So mainly we're looking at 307.72, basically 308. If we can get back above that, that's massively bullish. Otherwise, pattern-wise, not going to lie, guys, I'm kind of seeing a cup and handle sort of thing going on here. If we look at our hourly chart, it's even cleaner. I mean, this is kind of cooking up to be a nice little cup and handle, not gonna lie. We can see our bull flag coming off the top of here. So when you look at these kind of rising wedges, I mean, this is barely a rising wedge. It's more so just a rising channel. It's really not even a channel. It's kind of just the market just went straight up for a time. But when you break out of these things, like we clearly did, you can clearly see we break out to the downside. These things usually retrace to the downside about 50% of the total move, which would pull us down to about 296.20. That's kind of where I would guesstimate that we would get pulled down to, and you can see the key level on that, where that has been a past resistance. Personally, I would love if we pull back down to 297.75, this key level. You can see this zone. I mean, this zone is so very clear. You can see what price action is done around this zone. You can see it. It has Previously, it's been a resistance. It's turned into support, turned into support, turned into resistance, 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 resistance. Could we pull back in there and find support? That would be massively, hugely bullish in my honest opinion. If we did pull back into this 298 range and then we did find support, that would set us up perfectly, break this cup and handle, break above the trend line, and then we're soaring straight for 307 on the Nasdaq. That's what I'm seeing right now. As for downside, if we come below 296, that to me screams that this was kind of just a bull trap. And then we have a gap to the downside from 295 down to like 294.50. So not a huge gap, but that is where I would kind of get more bearish, is if we continue to lose those levels that were previously resistance. If we can't find support at those levels, then things aren't as bullish as I'm thinking. But you just cannot ignore the volume that those past couple days, Thursday and Friday, had. Really good buying volume. So let's look at the S&P 500 real quick. S&P 500, same thing. Disgusting daily flag on very low volume. I mean, everyone was expecting low volume because Powell is talking tomorrow. He's the guy. He's in control of the ship. He's the captain. Everyone's going to wait and listen to what the captain has to say. So not surprising there, but same idea. Kind of just a sort of clear cup and handle to me. I don't know if this is just me seeing stuff, but that's kind of what it's looking like right now. And same thing. I'm going to do the same thing. Whip out my fib. Let's see. 50% retracement. That would bring us down to 400. So that would be fantastic. We ripped straight through 400. I mean, we basically gapped over it starting on Friday and just went straight up from 400. So retest of 400, bounce off of that. We come and test this trend line, break above that up into 408. Massively bullish. And we have a similar zone like I talked about on the Nasdaq. We have this zone over here where you can see it was resistance here, resistance here, resistance, turns into support, support, support. Boom, we shred right through it. Once we break that support, that's where we really started to tumble. And then once again, it's resistance, resistance, resistance. So if we come back into this zone from about 402 to about 400, which I think on SPX is basically 4K. Yeah, from 4020 to about 4,000. We come back into that zone, do a little consolidation, break back above the upside. I mean, if we bounce clean off of 402 right here at this level, right where we were resisting, we bounce clean off of that, and I really like it to the upside. We break below that. We break below 399, 398.74-ish. Then I'm leaning back more down to the downside. Those are just my levels, but you can clearly see we just have a trend line up here. We still have a big gap right here to fill. Still got a big gap to fill, 407 up to about 408.20. So not that big of a gap, but you can see the significance of this level too, 408.20. You can see right over here. I mean, we bounce off it, bounce off it, bounce off it, bounce off it, bounce. So got to retake that, and you see the confluence, that trend line right there on top of 408.24. We break above that. We're sending straight back up to 413, straight back up to probably 417 in my honest opinion. But based off today's daily candle, it was just an ugly day. We gap up, and the buyers, they didn't have any gas in the tank. So that's really the gist of the day. If we start to look at some of our individual names, Microsoft, same thing, ugly daily candle. So Microsoft, same idea as the Nasdaq, same idea as the S&P. We have a zone right here that was once support, now resistance, resistance. Hey, we broke through that. Right when we broke through that, we shot up. So we come back in this zone on Microsoft. We retest this zone at about 255, bounce out of there. I'm loving it to the upside. Personally, Microsoft looks fantastic to the upside in my honest opinion. Higher high, higher low. But that's where I'm looking at on Microsoft right now. Looking at Apple. So Apple is just crazy. Apple had a huge, still kept green, still up about 2% on the day, but also just put in another ugly, disgusting daily candle, but on super high volume. So Apple, same thing. I mean, all these stocks are just like right. It's crazy. All these stocks are like symmetrically right in the same spots. They have this zone right under them. And same here, Apple, this zone right at 149 up to about 150.80. This zone where we had support, Then what happens? That turned into resistance, resistance, resistance. So let's see if we can retest. I imagine this gap will get filled on Apple, which is a huge gap. So that $2 move on Apple will obviously be some pain for the greater indexes. So I would not be surprised if tomorrow and Wednesday do come off as small red days. I'm not expecting we just go crazy unless Powell is really, really dovish, which I see no reason for why he should be, but he has surprised us all before. But it's very clear on Apple where the bears are sitting. This is just monster supply zone. We tested it again. Boom. Hit it, dumped, hit it, dumped. And then I mean, geez, look at that. Almost to the cent. Almost to the cent. What's the high on that? 156.33. 156.29, so barely just putting in a lower low on Apple. Really, if Apple comes down here, if we break below 150, I'm not going short Apple. I would love to see support at 147.20 again on Apple if we do pull back. So that's really where I'm at. I'm mostly liquid at the moment. I still have my NVIDIA puts for June. I still have AMD puts for May, I believe. I did take profit on a SPY call today, which was phenomenal. I took profits right up here at like 406 because I just knew this shit was going to dump. No way, we just going straight up forever, you know? So that's why you got to take profits. Very important you take profits. So that's what I'm getting on Apple. Just expecting some retests, expecting a gap fill with some retests, some consolidation around this level before we start to make that next leg up. NVIDIA. So NVIDIA was pretty weak compared to the rest of the market today, down about 1.5%. What's on some pretty decent selling volume. You know, the buyers, they made a big move. We bounced straight from 224 straight up to 240. But that fizzled out today. Also put in a ugly daily candle. So the sellers are right where we expected them to be. I've been telling you guys forever. Expect sellers up here at 239. We're not just going to shoot straight through this zone. Expect sellers. This is going to take some time. Personally, to me, NVIDIA has the best risk to reward to the downside still. And I know it's so strong. It's been so incredibly, stupidly strong recently. But if we do start to get bad news on the interest rates, tech is going to be what sells off the hardest. Especially the tech company that is the most overvalued at the moment, basically, NVIDIA. Those are going to be the ones that see the most pain. Even NVIDIA will have a big sell-off. So I'm expecting a move down to like the 180s on NVIDIA. Not going to lie, I know it sounds crazy, but it really isn't crazy for NVIDIA to make those kind of moves. If I have to remind you of April and have to remind you of September and late August, NVIDIA is very capable of making these big moves to the downside. And you can see this channel that we're just in on NVIDIA. I mean, look at this channel. Bounce off top, bounce off top, bounce off top, off top, off top. So maybe we push to 250, we bounce off this again, and then we start to make a leg lower, but I still see NVIDIA making some downside. I'm not going to lie. I still see NVIDIA making a wee bit of downside. If we look at our US 10 years, bonds, yeah, didn't really do much. I mean, they pulled down pretty low today, then went back up, ugly daily candle. Not much going on in the bonds. If those continue to come down, if we still see bond yields coming down, that will be very bullish for the market. If we see the dollar put in a pretty red day today, right? No, it's only down 0.25%. But we also see the dollar coming down, coming out of this rising wedge. If we see the dollar come down with bond yields, that's going to be very bullish for the market. There's no way around that. That will push stock prices up 100%. VIX, barely green today, a bit of a nothing day for the VIX, obviously waiting for Powell. That's just what happens. When the market knows Powell's going to come out and talk, it just does nothing. And you should expect that because he's the guy. He's the top dog. You haven't been paying attention if you don't already know that for yourself. But Amazon putting in an ugly red day, pretty solid volume too. So Amazon, it's sold off quite a bit more than a lot of the other tech stocks, and you can really see these levels pretty clearly on Amazon. I mean, 97 to 96.50 is now turned into resistance. It was resistance over here where it used to be support. So same thing. There's that zone that was once support. Now it's resistance. That's where Amazon's headed. Amazon really needs to hold above 91.50, below 91.50, and we have a huge. We got us a big old volume shelf here. You can see the volume down here. There's nothing. Looking at the volume profile. So the volume shelf is right there at 91. We fall off that volume shelf. We make a very quick move down to these lows. I would assume we have a gap to the downside right here, gap to the downside below that. So that's where I'm looking at on Amazon, but yeah, I expect it to kind of do what the greater market does. It has been really weak compared to the rest of the market, but really that's what I'm seeing on Amazon right now. It doesn't look pretty. I don't like it either to the upside or the downside, not gonna lie. Tesla to the downside, on the other hand. So Tesla also weaker than the greater market, and it kind of looks like the same idea. This zone here. Look at this. Look at this here. Look at this here. We're back in this zone. So this is kind of where we've seen a lot of heavy consolidation, where we've pushed out, we've pushed below, but the price always returns to this box from 192 to 197. So we need to see a meaningful move below this box. And if we don't, then I imagine we stay in the box. And when I say meaningful, I mean like a daily candle close outside of this box, like a long-term candle. I don't mean like 5 minutes we're out of this box. Hey, we're going straight up. Tesla, just like Nvidia, it has just gone so crazy. It's outperformed the market for months now. I expect it will have a good chunk of downside if the greater market sell off. But it's pretty clear that the bulls ain't messing around. I was way too early to the party trying to short things, and yeah, Thursday and Friday was a wake up call. It was hey, the bulls are still here. Don't forget about us. So you got to keep that in mind, man, that the bulls, they can come back anytime. You never know. You never know with these people. So I appreciate you all for watching. I would just ask if you could please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on the video. Drop a comment if you found any of this informative or if you disagree with everything I say. I appreciate all comments. I read all comments because I usually get like maybe 2 or 1 or none. So anyways, thanks for watching. I will see you guys on the next one. I imagine Powell will have a lot of juicy things to talk about tomorrow. So I'm probably going to have a long video for you all tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. We'll see you later. Practice some caution. Not financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. But practice caution tomorrow. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be wild. So stay tuned for that.